everyone and welcome back to my channel. Let's talk mini art journals. So this is the original one I made, and it is quite economical on paper. I can't talk to you about US size paper. Is it called letter paper? I don't know the dimensions of it, and I apologise for that. I could have looked that up before I came on, but I didn't think about that. But if you're using A4 paper, you can get 2 of these sheets cut out of A4. So this one is quite economical, but the downside is that it left you with a small, if that is 4x4, it's all right if you're working directly in the album, which you could do. There's nothing to stop you doing that. I thought I would work on flat pieces of paper, especially if this gets a bit chunky when you've got things in it. I would work on separate pieces of paper and stick them in. And because this is, I think it's 4 1/4 by 4 1/4. Oops, let's have a look. She says, this is 4 by 4, of course it is. Your artwork that needs to go in there has to be less than 4 by 4. So it could be 3 3/4 by 3 3/4 if you wanted a tiny border or something like that. So, and with this in the way as well, you don't want to butt it right up to the string. So, although it is quite economical, and I will leave all the dimensions and everything, measurements for this in the description box. So this is my economical, slightly smaller journal. This one is my next prototype, and I think it is a slightly better size. It is these pieces of paper in here. These are 4 1/4 by 4 1/4. So if you cut your page, your art journal page, be it mixed media paper, card, whatever you're working on, to 4 inches by 4 inches, these would fit nicely onto this size. It is more wasteful with the paper. You can't get 2 of these out of A4, but you could perhaps, not 100% sure about this, but you might be able to get them out of 12 by 12. You have to have a fiddle around, so it depends what you want to make these out of. I've stuck with card, but you could use pattern paper, anything you like. So I'm going to be working on this size for now. The spine I've reduced. This one was 2 inches, and I had far too many pages in it. This one I've only got 6 leaves, I'm going to call them, in there, and the spine is 1 1/2 inches, and it seems a better size. There's fewer pages. I decided that 6 of these gave us 24 areas to write, journal on, and if we're doing 2 a month, that would be like a year's art journal. For those of you who are interested in sticking it out for a year. And if you really wanted to add more, you could, you've got halfway through it and you decided you want to do 1 a week or whatever, you could always restring this and put more in. Or if you decided you only want to, you've done a few but you can't do any more, you could restring it and just have a few pages. It's entirely up to you. But I'm thinking that's about the right sort of size. And you've got space in here now to add dimension to your pages. You've only got 6 of these in that space. And you can, you can add bits on flowers or whatever and give yourself something, it's not going to be too crammed in there. I'll tell you what I've forgotten to do, and this is entirely up to you whether or not you do this or not, but I didn't put a closure on it, a ribbon closure, which I said I was going to do, and I don't know if I will either, because I quite like it as it is. But if you wanted to, I'll tell you when you can put your ribbon in, if I remember. Okay, so shall we get started on this one? Of course, if you wanted to make it 4 inches by 5, if you wanted it slightly taller, you can adjust yours and just make it a little bit taller if you wanted to put a word on it or anything. But anyway, let's crack on with this one. So what do you need? To begin with, you're going to need some Greyboard. So, you know what I mean, like the back of if you get like a watercolour pad or a mixed media pad, board at the back. That's like Greyboard, or you can buy Greyboard, and I've got some, but I've decided not to use it. I've decided to use something that we probably all have some of, and that's Amazon packaging, or any packaging. I guess you could use cereal box or anything. But if you're using packaging, if you're using Greyboard, yours would probably be nice and thick, and you only need one of those, and one of these. But if you're using Amazon packaging or cereal box, you're going to need two of those, I think, and glue them together to give them just a little bit of structure and to make them strong. They don't feel that strong at the moment, but by the time you've put glue in there as well, that will give it a little bit extra strength, and you'll have quite a decent cover. I mean, you can hear that. You can't bend that. That's a decent thickness, I think. So let's talk sizes. These pieces here are 4.5 inches by 4.5 inches. Okay, and you'll need 4 of those out of packaging, 2 if you're just using Greyboard. The spine is 4.5 by 1.5. Now it's up to you. If you wanted a bigger spine, make it 2 inches or whatever. It's entirely up to you. You customize it how you want to do that. Now with this size, it's going to be a bit of a I don't know actually. I say it's going to be a struggle to get on A4. Let me just have a quick look, because I think now I've cut the spine down, we might get away with it. You could just about get away with A4 paper, just about. But I am going to use some pattern paper, and this is just a 12 by 12 sheet. Okay, I'll show you it, but I've cut it, pre-cut it. 12 by 12, and I have cut my 12 by 12 at 7 inches on this side. Okay, so we've got 7 and 5. And we're going to use that bit, so it won't go to waste. So that's the outside. I think I'm going to keep that as my outside cover. So I'm turning that over, and I'm going to be gluing these things. Now I haven't glued them together yet, so let's do that first. I would suggest don't use hot glue. Personally, I never get on with hot glue. It sort of glues something for, you know, about the time it takes for you to turn away, and then it falls apart, in my opinion. So I'm using Yoo-hoo. There is a magical glue I hear called, is it Collal? Never had it, but apparently that's pretty good as well. But anything that's sort of like a slightly wet glue, I think works. You give yourself a little bit of wiggle room, just to move the two pieces together, just to spread the glue slightly, and then just smoosh them together. So you could use PVA, I'm sure would work. I just happen to use, like I used to use Beacon 3-in-1, but it's quite expensive, although actually it's not hugely different in price to the Yoo-hoo. But anything like so, just put them on top of each other, slightly off, wiggle them around a bit, so you spread that glue, line them all up, and then that's the strength in your cover. And this is the spine. We'll do the same with that. So just gluing. There we go. I'm just going to wiggle it over and line it up. And you probably want to give these a minute or two to dry, but me being me, I'm just going to press on. So you've got your Greyboard, you've got 4.5 by 4.5, 4.5 by 1.5, and you've got your piece of paper that you're going to use. Mine is 12 by 7. And the idea is that you are going to, if you've got a larger piece of paper, you know, that would be even better, because we are going to struggle at the edges slightly. But you know, you could use A3, but again, that's quite wasteful. We can get away with this. We don't need it to be, and in fact, you don't need it to be 7 inches tall. You could get away with 6 inches. That would be sufficient. But I'm just going to stick mine like that for now. Now, I would suggest at this point, if you are going to I'm going to say about a ribbon closure, because this is the difficulty with this, because we're going to neaten this up. A ribbon closure is going to be quite difficult to do. I would suggest, if you want a ribbon closure on it, that you, when you've got your book like this, that you put a ribbon on and then put a panel over the top of this. So choose a different colour and just put a panel on it to stick the ribbon on, and maybe on the spine as well. That is how I would do it. I think if we put a ribbon closure in here, it's not going to help us because we want to fold these edges over. So let's continue. So line this up. You need a small gap between those pieces. Now, I estimate that to be around about 3 or 4 millimeters. You don't need a huge amount. You don't need half. You don't need a quarter of an inch, even less than that. Between an eighth and a quarter of an inch. You need a tiny bit of space either side of the paper here, and it doesn't matter so much at the top because there's plenty. All right. So I would start with the spine and glue your spine. So just put your glue on. Like this. And pop it in, you know, roughly centrally. Don't worry too much about it, because this is easy and stress-free, hopefully. And then we're gluing the next one, and we've just got to line it up with top and bottom of the spine and try and keep it square and leave a little gap by the spine so that we can fold it up neatly. Okay, you could use tape to do this, but personally I get in a bit of a mess with tape and I'm more likely to make a mistake, but you use what you find the most suitable for you. So just lining this up. Hopefully you could get a ruler if you were worried and sort of line it up like that. I'm not too fussed. It doesn't really matter. Leave yourself this little gap here, and then do the same with the other one. Now, if you didn't want a ribbon closure, you could always just tie your something around your journal, like some seam binding or something like that. I'm actually going to just make that slightly less. I don't think we need quite so much. Right, ideally now we're going to wait for this to dry. That is the sensible thing to do. Am I going to do that? Probably not. Now, we're going to cut the corners. You don't want to cut right on that corner, and you don't want to cut right up here either, because that won't look great. You could either cut it straight across like that, or you could just cut, which I'm going to do. I'm going to try and just miter it in. I hope you can see what I'm doing. I'm coming in a little bit. I'm not coming right to the corner, and I'm going to turn it and do exactly the same this way. She says, try not to cut a finger off. You know what I'm like with a pair of scissors. To here. All right, now it doesn't matter if you go right across and just do cut across there. You know, that is fine as well. But, and I'll explain why I've done it when you can see better why. So I'm just going to miter that in a little bit to there. Same for this bit here. Like that. I might have left myself a little bit too much there. Let's cut that bit like that. All right, so, but it's up to you. It doesn't really matter. Just don't go quite to the corner. Otherwise the corner will poke through and you'll see it. If you don't mind that look, that's absolutely fine. Same goes for this one. I'm trying not to be too, I've done that one a little bit sharp. There is a reason. Hopefully it will become apparent. Something like that. Especially if you're doing the other size album that I was doing, you know, the original one, because you've got even less. You've got a little bit, but you've got less down the side there. Right. I am going to, I don't know how to score that. Where's my little doobry? Here it is. You could score down here if you wanted to, or use a ruler or something like that. But you just want to, I'm just going to try and tease that up a bit for now. Okay. We're not going to put a fold in it. I just want to tease it up so I know where it is. Same goes for that. You could put a ruler, or it just will do its own thing anyway. Right, there we go. I'm going to use my little, what is it? Just like a dotting tool. But if you've got a scoring tool or something, you might want to just give that a little bit of a helping hand along the edges. It's not necessary particularly, but I just think it might help because this is quite thick, that's all. But I don't know, you know, if it's 100% necessary. Oops, and along there. Okay. Right, so let us lift up and have a burnish. Use a bone folder or a ruler or something, pencil, doesn't really matter. And burnish your edges, get them up and over, and just burnish them over the top there and at the ends here. And it's going to be a bit stiff down here because there's not a lot of room, and there's even less if you, well, it depends if you did it my original size with a 2-inch spine. There's even less room with a piece of A4. Anyway, so here we go. Right, what should we do first? Let's have a think. I'm going to stick these edges down here first. So this edge, where we haven't got a little bit of glue right on the join, and then obviously just glue your flap and bring it over, burnish it down, and I'm going to, because it's quite, there's not a lot of paper and area to glue, I'm just going to pop some clips on it while I work on the other side. Okay, you can sit and hold it as well if you want, but I'm sure you don't want to sit and watch my glue dry. So same down this end, glue just on the spiny bit where it folds, and then glue over, burnish it down, and I'm going to throw those around. Let's put that on there and that on there. Okay, and just, that means I can move on, but you could sit and hold yours or let it dry or whatever you like. Now the next bit, let me show you on the original one. I didn't do anything with this one, and you can see the crack of the paper at the back, and you can see the board. If you're happy with that, leave it like that. I'm not awfully keen, so what I've done is it looks exactly the same, but it isn't. I've used brown like parcel tape to cover the spine. It gives it slightly more strength, and it also means you don't see that bit there. You could use washi tape, you could use a piece of paper. I wouldn't get anything too stiff, like this is quite stiff. I probably wouldn't put that on there, but you could, or you could put a whole piece over that whole area, and then put that on. You can use masking tape and colour it in. I'm just trying to think what I could put on there. I could use a bit of a jelly print, couldn't I, or something like that. Anything if you didn't want to see that spine as it is. But I think I'm looking at my paper and thinking that's probably not the best look for that. Let me find something. Bear with me. Okay, so I found a jelly print, one of my jelly prints. It's on just normal copy paper, so it's not too thick. I've cut it slightly less than 4.5 because I don't want it to be right up to the top here so that it interferes with the folding, and it needs to be wider than that gap there. Now I've done mine just 2.5 inches, but you might want to do 3 inches. It depends how big your gap is there. And we're basically going to be sticking that over there, and then you won't see any of that. If you're not bothered by it, literally don't worry about it. It's just me being me. But if there's anybody who's like me and doesn't like to see like the mechanism of the spine and wants it all hidden, let's just stick a piece of paper on here, which is slightly not as wide, so just under 4.5, and quite a little bit wider either side, 2.5, 3 inches there. So pop it on, glue it. Oops, before we just do that, I'm just going to stick glue in the gaps, just a little bead of glue, not too much, don't want it oozing out everywhere, but there you go. Right, now let's put that back on. Right, and before you do any burnishing down or anything, grab something like your bone folder, or I'm using a old sort of store card. Just see, mine could have done with being a little bit bigger, I think, there, but in fact I could just move it along. Can I move it along? Does it want to move along? Yeah, that might be a bit better. Okay, and then just bend it into that gap there. You can lift your paper up a bit, just so that you've got movement in that spine. You don't want it to be too stiff. Okay, and when you've done that, oops, mine is stuck to there, you can just burnish it on. Don't worry too much, I could put a little bit more glue in that if it doesn't want to stick, but hopefully we will be covering that and then we won't even notice. So okay, so just make sure you've gone down, oops, down there, so that closes nicely, and you can burnish everything down. Right, and we're going to remove these, so hopefully our sides are glued. We will do exactly the same as we have just done, but with this bottom end here. I've got a lot of glue on there, let's get rid of that. Bead of glue down the crease, and then make sure you're doing up to the edge, but it's not, you know, it isn't that essential, because you'll see why in a minute. So glue it on, push it down a bit, same sort of thing, we've got to push into here like that and like that, otherwise this is not going to lay flat. So something like that, and then and the same with this one, push it into there so you've got a nice flat bit there, and then this will, otherwise you'll get buckling if you don't help it along in the middle. All right, now the reason I mitered mine as I did and didn't go right across is that because this is quite a thin turnover, if you go straight across the edge, I can't show you it, but if you go straight across the edge, these two bits may not meet. Not that it doesn't matter at all, but because this is quite thin, I thought if I do if I sort of miter them with quite a sharp angle, this one will fold on top of here and help hold that one down. That's my only logic. All right, so it's not essential. You could just cut off a triangle off the corner, and you can see that the corners are covered, but there's not too much spare paper in them. So same down this end, just some more glue, a bead down by the crease, that'll help it stick there, and then some along there. Fold it over, get a tool of some kind, a ruler, a bone folder or something, and help it in the middle. Lift them up, help the middle bit stick down, and if you hold it up like that, and the same goes for this side here. While you're doing it, hopefully you can see what I'm doing, just lifting it up and pushing this down, and then you won't get so much buckling and bobbling of the paper. All right, so that's essentially our cover around there. Looks a bit tatty here, so I'm going to use the rest of that, what was it, 12, I've used the 12 by 7, so there's 5 by 12 left, if that makes sense. So I need to cut some bits here to go down there. So let me get my paper cutter, and I need some panels in there. I think they're, I'll just double check, but I think they're 4 1/4 by 4 1/4. That would do, yep, 4 1/4. So you can use the same material, the same paper. That's, you know, that was one economical thing. You can use one piece of 12 by 12 to do the whole cover. Right, so I'm hopefully doing this. My cutter is not the best. I need to get myself a new cutter. At 4 1/4. So that's the waste I've got from there so far. And then if you've got, so my design is just like a geometric design. If you've got a pattern on there, say you've got some flowers and a butterfly and the pattern goes along, and you want your pattern to continue along there, and you want to do the spine, I'm not 100% sure if I will, I probably will. But if you do, what you want to do now that you've cut it at 4 1/4, is pick an end that you want as your starting point, and then you'd cut your paper at 4 1/4, like that, because that will be the first panel. Then you'd want the spine, which is 1 1/4. And then you want the next one, which is 4 1/4. Now, because mine, the design, it doesn't really matter whether that design flows across the whole of that inner. Again, that's your waste from that. And another 4 1/4. So those are your inside panels. And then we're just going to glue them in. So you've got one here. If you get what I mean about the pattern. So mine could go like that. It wouldn't really matter. But if you wanted your pattern to flow across there, cut them 4 1/4, 1 1/4, 4 1/4, and then your pattern will go across the whole of the inside. Right, so that is more or less what I'm going to do, and then I'm going to glue those onto there, and I'll come back when I've done that. Okay, so that is your that's your spine, and your book and spine, and your art journal is what I'm trying to say. And that is exactly what I've done with mine. I haven't done anything extra apart from put the binding, the spine thingy, whatever it is. I don't know what it's called, the string spine in there. So that is essentially finished. Now I'm going to show you that if you want to add a closure, this is what I would do. I would turn it so that is the cover side up. I have now cut some pads, so you could choose what colour you want, what thing you want to go on there. So I've just chosen a sort of a complementary, or maybe not even complementary piece. Now these are 4 1/4 by 4 1/4, 4 1/4 by 1 3/8, because you can do 1 1/4, but I just thought it could do to be slightly larger. So 4 3/4, they're all 4 3/4, 4 1/4 in height. This one is 4 1/4 in width. This is 1 3/8. This is 4 1/4. So that is what I would do. And I'm just going to put them up there. And then I would put my ribbon. And I've got about 75 centimetres of ribbon. Don't ask me what that is. I don't know what it is, but I'll put it in the description box in inches. Find the centre, somewhere like that, and then you can decide what you do about how you put that on. Do you know what? I think I might use, yeah, doesn't matter. I'm going to use some of this tape here, and I'm eyeballing. Oh, get off! I'm eyeballing it. I'm not going to worry about it too much, but you want some across the whole of that. Let's just go like that, not thinking about it too much. I think that would be the best way. You can glue it on as well, doesn't matter. Take my tape away. You can measure it if you want to make sure it goes exactly level. I'm just not gonna worry about it. She says, not being able to take that off. Where's my pokey tool? Oh, there we go. So this is only if you want a ribbon closure. find the centre of your ribbon, which I think I did, and lost it instantly, and then I'm just going to stick that over there. It doesn't matter that my ribbon is very, well, it will perhaps matter a little on the corners, but I was going to say if it was slightly less wide than the tape. Not that bit, not that much of a problem. So glue your panels on. And again, if you've watched the video and then you're thinking about what you're doing, you could put this as a plain paper if you didn't want to, you know, use patterned, and then just put the pattern paper on top, this bit. But this is what will help hold your ribbon on. So you could do that. And again, when you're cutting it, if you want the design to go all the way across, make sure that you don't just cut a 4 1/4 by a 4 1/4 and then do that again. Do your first one, then do your spine, which is 1 3/8 or whatever you want there. And then the pattern will flow across if you're bothered by that. Okay, so this is only if you're doing a ribbon closure. If you're not, just bear with me and I'll be on to the spine in just a second. And there are 2 options for the spine, although I only have the one. But some of you people may have another option. Right, so something like that. And you can, you know, line it up a bit better than me. But that will do. So now we've got an album and we can tie it closed if we want to. So that would seem the most sensible way to get a closure. Right. So for the actual how we're going to hold the papers, I am using string, and I'm actually just using plain string. You could use I guess you could use elastic and do it tight. You could use anything that's going to be in the centre of your page. So whatever you want to see in the centre or not see, you know, you have a go at using that. My original idea was to use hair bands, you know, elastic hair bands, hair ties, and then you would just fit them over there, 6 of them, elastic bands basically, 6 of them or however many you want, just put them on, and then that would automatically be your spine, and you can just pop your leaves through there. Mine are too small and I can't stretch them over there, so I'm going for this string. Now my string is 180 centimetres, that's about 72 inches. And what you want to do, and I'm going to tie mine on the outside, so this is the outside of the book, that's the inside, this is the outside. I'm going to hold about 6 inches down here out the way and just hold it with my finger like this. And we're literally just going to wrap it round, so we've got 6 of those on the inside. So at the moment there's none, they're on the outside but not on the inside. So we've got 1 on the inside, 2 on the inside, 3 on the inside, 4, 5 and 6, hopefully, and I'll turn it over and show you so that you can see we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, it doesn't really matter because you can move them around afterwards. Okay, so you've got 6 of these. If you wanted more pages, more leaves in your book, you would need to add more of these and you would need more string. Keep it on the roll. You don't need to take it off the roll actually until you're ready. Okay, so this is what we've got here. It's fairly tight. It's not really tight that it's gripping and pushing into here, but they are fairly tight. You can still pick them up, but you want them to be fairly tight. Now, here comes the fiddly bit. Get a bone folder or something if you can. Lift it underneath these. Take one end and pull it through. And then go in the other side. I'll try and do it so you can see what I'm doing, if I can. You could probably keep the bone folder in there actually. Go on in. these. I can do it if I turn it around, but I don't want to turn the book around because I was trying to show you and make it easier for you. Let's do that. Oh my goodness, Steph. Right, so, and then we take this one, which was on this side, through there. So now we've got one on either side here. Now you can choose where you want your bow to be. You could have it in the centre, you could have it at the top, you could have it at the bottom. And I'm just going to tie a knot. And I'm not really bothered where it goes, roughly in the centre. And so yeah, I'm going to try and keep it fairly tight. As she says, it's never easy on camera, is it? No, it's not very good. Let's just make that a bit tighter before it goes. But, you know, maybe you could get somebody, a small child, to hold it, put their finger on it. A husband. Cat, maybe, if you've got a very obedient cat. Anyway, something like that. Just I tied it in a knot. You don't even have to tie it in a knot. You could just tie it in a bow, but you run the risk of it opening up. Okay, and that is that. You can trim your ends if you want to, or not if you like them. You can now cover that, if you wish, with some seam binding, which is what I did with that. I just put 2 lots of seam binding through. Didn't make them long enough, I don't think. Or you could put some ribbon through and tie a bow around that if you want to sort of hide that or add to it or whatever you want. I guess you could put beads on it. You could do what you like with it. This is the inside, and we can just move these a little bit, move them over a little bit if we wish. But that is essentially the album. Now we're just going to add the pages inside, what I'm calling the leaves. And for that, you'll need some card or something, whatever I said before, you could use mixed media paper or something, but that feels a little bit of a, well, it depends what you want to work straight in the book. I am going to make mine from card. This is 200 GSM card. You could have thicker card, you could do what you like with it. It really doesn't matter. That does not look like the right size there, so I need to just double check what I've done with that. If I've picked up the wrong one. Okay, let me just trim these down. So this is the bit where I felt it was a little bit wasteful, okay, because if you use a piece of A4 paper and you need to cut this at a height of 4 1/4, which for some reason I neglected to do on those two, you can only get one of these per sheet of A4. All right, so when you cut your piece, and this is, I'll tell you what it is, it's cut at 4 1/4 by 8 1/2, you are left with, per sheet, this and that. So essentially that is your A4 piece of paper. This is the bit that you want. This is not quite big enough, which is a bit of a, this is the bit that galls me a little bit. I won't waste this paper. I will use it for ATCs and everything else, but it feels a bit wasteful because you're only using this part of it. If you used 12 by 12 paper in here, you'd probably have enough to have, because you'd have 4 1/2 and 4 1/2. You could get 2 out of one piece. If you make the smaller album, which is why I did it, you can use this, which is, I think, let me just double check before I tell you porcupine, but I think this is, 4 inches. You can get 2 out of a piece of A4, which is why I did it, because I don't like, to me that just feels wasteful. It isn't, I will use it, but I'm warning you now, folks, it feels a bit of a waste. That is not used in this project. You might want to use it for your pages when you do your art journal pages, which I might end up doing. So these are all, and you need 6 of these. 6 4 1/4 by 8 1/2, and then we're just going to fold them in half. I'm not scoring them. You can score them, but I don't know whether or not they would score so that they, they fit exactly, and it doesn't matter anyway, I've got 2 there, I think. So we're just folding them in half and burnishing them with a bone folder. And there's just one thing to do. Now it's up to you what you do with the putting them through, and I'll give you the pros and cons of both ways. All right, because it depends how tight you've done your string and how dexterous you are. When you come to put these in, I strongly recommend that you start in the centre somewhere. No, don't start at an end, because you're going to have to work over the other pieces of paper. So start in the middle somewhere and you poke them through. Literally, that's all you're doing. But if this is particularly tight, all right, you may find rounding the corners, well, it definitely makes it easier to get your paper in. So if you get this far and your paper's not fitting, you could round your corners and put them in. And that does make it easier to add them to the journal. The downside of rounding the corners means that your paper that you've got, when you do a 4x4 piece of art journal to put in there, you're either going to have to round your corner of 2 of the sides of your art journal piece, and let me show you why. No, because it's not the same on here, and this is a bit too big. But if you don't, then when it fits in, it's going to look a bit strange. This is a bit big because it was the other one. You may want to round 2 of those corners, and then you'll have 2 pieces, or you could have all 4 round corners. It's up to you. But I think that if you don't round the corners, you'll get, the most out of your 4x4 piece of paper. It's up to you. Not too hard to do this. If it, that's what I said, there's a tiny bit of give in the string, not too much, but it's a little bit and it gets trickier the more you have in here. Okay, so just take your time, lift it up, slip it under. And the beauty is you can take these out to work on if you want to, provided you don't have too much dimension. Imagine if you've got loads of clay pieces and things, you're never going to slip that back under there. So do bear that in mind when you're making it. That's why I thought it's better to make the things on a separate page and then just stick them in. That was my logic. Anyway, folks, hopefully, I don't know if I've cut enough of this piece of paper or I've put one somewhere. Hopefully that's helped you if you want to make this one of these books just like mine. Oh, go through. I need 2 more, and I've only got 1 piece of paper, so maybe I've put one somewhere. Maybe I didn't cut enough. Probably more than likely. But anyway, you get the idea. 6 pieces if you've got 6 strings. But something like that. And then there's room for dimension, all sorts of things. And if you've done a closure, you can tie it up. And that is it. Any questions, pop them in the comments and I'll do my best to help you out. I will leave as much as I can the measurements in the description box, and happy making. My thoughts, since we said twice a month, my thoughts are this, that because I'm doing the ATC draw on the 15th of the month, that I would also do a prompt on the 15th of the month. And because our ATCs need to be somewhere by the 1st of one or other month, I'm going to pick the 1st of the month. So I think what I will do is do a prompt, or pull a prompt out on the 1st of each month and on the 15th of each month. And then that way I haven't got to remember to do stuff in between and everything else. I hope everybody's okay with that. We've all decided on a 1 quote, not having a choice, because that seems better for most people, and procrastinating and decision making. Some people wanted a choice, but some of those people also didn't want to do it twice a month. So if they're doing it once a month, they would actually have two prompts in order to choose from. So my plan is, as I said, the 1st and the 15th of the month to pull out a prompt, and we all use it, and you do whatever you want, your interpretation. It might be completely different right off the scale, out the box, everything else doesn't matter. It's your work. You do what you want to do. Practice doing different techniques, trying different new things, different products, everything else, or just do the same kind of thing. Use magazines, whatever you've got, whatever you feel comfortable, makes you happy. That's what you need to do. You know, nobody's telling you you've got to do something this way or that way. It's your choice. It's your book, your choice. Just, you know, have fun with it. If you just want to draw in it and colour in it, stick a colouring book, whatever. There's no right or wrong at all. Just do it your way. Do what makes you happy. I'm going to put a load of prompts in a pot, but I'm going to ask you if you've got any ideas for prompts. If you want to put them in the comments, do that. If you want to email me because you don't want them to be, people to know it was your prompt, fine. Just send me an email. I'll leave my email in the description box as well. Send me an email and I'm just going to put them all in. I will not pull them out and say, Jenny Ginger Ninja says, we've got to do black and white. I'm not going to put anybody's name in it. We just pull it out, and if it says black and white, we do black and white. If it says penguin, we do penguin, which is also black and white. It seems like I've got something stuck in my head there. If the thing was spring, we just do spring. I'm not saying who it was from. So it will all be anonymous. They're just prompts. We're just going to pull one out and we're just going to stick with it, whatever it is. Okay, so hopefully that was helpful, and hopefully lots of people are going to join in. I don't know where we are now, but I'll probably be doing the first prompt on the 15th. If you haven't done your album by then, doesn't matter. You can do it anytime, can't you? No rush. Okay, folks, enjoy the rest of the day. Hope that was helpful. If there's any problems or you don't understand something, just get back to me. In the meantime, take care, have fun, happy crafting, and I'll be back very soon.